Welcome back to Tanya in 5. The last few days, we've been studying chapter 50. We come now to the final chapter of Tanya, discussing attachment to God through love and fear of God. In the preceding chapters, when we talked about love of God, the feeling is one who wants to live with God, one who wants to give God a hug and a kiss, whether he sees God as a parent or sees God as the source of life, or it's a response to God's love of him. The feeling is such that the person feels this great and intense yearning to want to live with God, hug God, and feel God's hug. And he satisfies this desire with Torah and mitzvahs, which is the medium by which he becomes one and connects with God. In this chapter 50, the Alter Rebbe takes us to a whole new level of love. He describes this desire for God that goes well beyond everything we described till now. In fact, he says that it's very difficult for me to explain in writing what this feeling is like. But he says, anyone who has perfect performance of Torah and mitzvahs, has no sin, and has invested in trying to experience this love, knows the sublime beauty of what it's like to experience. And this is the love he describes. He describes one who understands and considers and contemplates the greatness of God to the point that everything that exists is quite literally absolutely nothing compared to God. To God, everything is of equal insignificance. And as such, all this person wants to do is completely lose himself. He wants to divest himself of all reality so that he can just bask in the beauty and glory of God, lose himself within God. To the point that he even wants to divest himself of his body, which forces him to feel separate from God. He wants to rid himself of all of it and lose himself within God. But this person reminds himself, this God whom I want to lose myself within, what does he want? Well, what he wants me to do is live in the body, live in a world, do Torah and mitzvahs so that I can transform this world and bring godliness here. So whereas in the love of the previous chapters, where the person wants to give God a hug, so the love itself motivates me to give God a hug through Torah and mitzvahs. Here, the love itself actually wants me to leave the body that allows me to do Torah and mitzvahs. It wants me to lose myself. And it's only this exterior force, as it were, God's desire that I be in this world, that's pulling me back into the world saying, no. You love to lose yourself in God. That's not what he wants. He wants you to live in this world, in this body, and serve him there. So this person is in a constant ebb and flow. Sometimes he feels like, I just want to divest myself of all of this and lose myself in God. And then he reminds himself, well, what does this God want from you? Go back to your world, go back to your life, and serve God there as he so desires. Now, the takeaway from all of this is, although I'm not sure that we can experience such an intense desire to be one with God that I want to divest myself of my everything, but to some degree, we all experience these intense desires of connectivity to God, and in those moments, we feel detached from the rest of our lives. For example, you can be taken by a beautiful melody during the high holiday service, where the experience is so overpowering that it just lifts you up to a beautiful world which is so detached from everything else, and you wish you can just stay in that moment. And the challenge, therefore, is to ask yourself, what's the purpose of that feeling? Is the purpose just to lose yourself in that experience and leave the rest of your life behind? Or does God want you to take that moment and bring it back to your life? Bring it back to your regular, ordinary, day-to-day life, and there to serve God, infused by the power of the intense experience that you had when you were losing yourself in that moment with God. Looking forward to seeing you when we conclude chapter 51.